morning and welcome to the program Eyes on Corruption. This is a program that comes to you every Thursday, 7 p.m. Nigerian time. A program that x-rays social political activities and development in Nigeria and indeed Africa. We're reaching you from multiple social media platforms, and today's topic will be about good governance in Africa. Why is Africa not getting it right with good governance? Sit back and relax. We'll be back shortly.
Eyes on Corruption, Global Coalition for Security and Democracy in Nigeria, GCSDN presents Eyes on Corruption, a weekly x-ray of social and political issues. Eyes on Corruption, an expose on issues that bother on corruption-related practices in Nigeria. Eyes on Corruption, informative, educative, and enlightening. Eyes on Corruption, every Thursday, 7 p.m. Nigerian time. Join us on our social media platforms on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and our website, gcsdn.org. Host, J. Ehizefua Ohali.
Welcome to the program Eyes on Corruption. My name again is Jay Hizefo Okale. The program today, Eyes on Corruption, and the topic is about good governance in Africa. Why is Africa not getting it right with good governance and leadership? The Nigerian election into the presidential office has come and gone. The campaign and electioneering processes prior to the election were very tough, and people were quite apprehensive of imminent breakdown of law and order during the election proper. But unfortunately, we are glad to say that the election did come and go on the 25th of February, but the people's wish, according to popular opinion, was not what actually come to pass. In that direction, a lot of people felt aggrieved and disappointed that their wishes, what they have wished for, did not come to pass. But although there is still a lot of controversy surrounding the result of that election and the process itself, as well as the declaration of the perceived winner, there's a lot of controversy about that, and that is a topic for a later date. So far, as of today, the election has come into the presidential office, and the presidential election has been concluded. We are now waiting for the the state houses election and the other elections are needed to be conducted afterward. Anyway, the topic about leadership in Africa is a very dear topic to my heart, and I encourage everyone to express their opinions, raise some comments in the comment section, and share. And let's enlighten ourselves, as to what is the problem with leadership in Africa that we are not getting it right after over half a century of many African nations getting independent. And to this end, I want to use the case study of the Nigerian state as an example. Nigeria attained independence in October 1st, 1960, and that is a long time ago. So far, the Nigerian state has not been able to actually come up with true, practicable, and genuine and honest democratic process that is actually people oriented, devoid of cliques, cabals, money bags. It is of paramount importance for a nation to have good government with good governmental structures in place so that the government system can actually run itself independent of persons that are judged to be people who have been seen as demigods in the political space, who can do whatever they want and ensure they get to power by all means. This is a serious issue in Africa, and we are out to sensitize, to continue in the job of sensitizing our African nations and citizens towards doing the right thing, because the right thing is the only thing that is needed to be done to achieve a good and proper solution to the status quo. Nigerians, and indeed every citizen of the African state, needs to have a reorientation of minds and values and begin to assess ourselves. Where are we getting it wrong? Why are we not able to elect credible leaders who will genuinely represent and serve the people in such capacities rather than being lords of the people? Citizens must endeavor to always elect people that can be true servants of the people rather than lords of the people who calls the shot at any time and care less whether the citizens' lifestyle is positively or negatively affected by their actions or inactions in government. And that is the reason why citizens' education in political and social issues must be paramount in our campaign to sustain, to actually create and sustain a viable African continent that is actually citizen driven, not a continent that is tied to the apron strings of the colonial masters who still remote control the governments of the day in Africa. This is a clarion call on all well meaning, passionate, and right minded citizens of Africa to ensure that they begin to cultivate the idea of fixing Africa by engaging in activities that will engender good governance, good followership, and of course, education of minds so that the old ways of doing things will be jettisoned to ensure that Africa and its citizens are adequately aware and knowledgeable in the acts and processes of how leaders or rulers of the nation emerge. That is the only way we can, as a matter of fact and urgency, fix the leadership issue in Africa as a continent. The individuals, nations that make up Africa have not been able to, as a matter of fact, elect leaders that can stand the test of time as genuine and true leaders of the people who will pilot the affairs of these various states to an expected end that the citizens will actually derive meaningful leads of life in all the policies and enactments of the various governments. And that is why we must continue to sensitize the polity, continue to educate the people, and continue to beam the searchlight on those areas that the people are not doing greatly, so that these areas can be assailed and analyzed for possible solutions to emerge that could lead to fixing the governance or the democratic processes in our nation, so that true leaders of the people who can be genuine servants of the people will eventually be able to emerge from such processes. And we must be aware that a nation derives its leadership from the caliber of people that it has. If we as a people take it upon ourselves and get committed to the act of electing or selecting people, credible people in the society who can be trusted, who have the capacity and the competence, the empathy to carry out good in the leadership of the country, then it is to the effect that the people are able to lead their hearts towards electing people that are not of questionable character. And it is only at that point that Nigerians and indeed African states will be able to arrive at the destination, which is putting good government in place to pilot the affairs of each of the African nations. And that is a clarion call to all well-meaning people of African descent all over the world to take it as a project to ensure that we have good governance in every part of Africa. Nations will remain, but the people will come and go. And to bequeath a better nation to our children and our children's children, we must begin to act now so that the labors of some of our heroes past will not be in vain. And our efforts also in creating a better society for the future will also be fruitful. It can only be fruitful if we all take it upon ourselves to ensure that we do the right thing, we do the needful, we do due diligence, and consider our actions and our inactions in such times that the opportunity presents itself to any nation to elect leaders. We must not jettison the part of honor, part of truth, part of sincerity, the part of honesty, and do and willingly elect leaders that we know will not deliver the goods or the dividends of democracy to the people. Just because of selfish interest, we elect people that are of questionable character, people that we know are not competent, people we know are not passionate to resolving the issues on ground. But because of selfish reasons or being able to tap from the stolen wealth that they have amassed, for such reasons, we want to vote in people that who have any business in leadership positions. That must be jettisoned. In the recently concluded presidential election in Nigeria, a lot of anomalies were x-rayed and detected. Although some part of the society still sees such glaring social media evidences as concocted and doctored pieces of post, but it cannot be rightly said that all those evidences that were displayed in various social medias within those periods, it is not completely right to say they're all doctored or fake, because some of those incidences were recorded live while the processes were going on. And for that reason, I want us to understand the fact that we can only change the nation if we are truly determined. We can only change the status quo if we are truly determined as citizens and arrive at the conclusion that no, we cannot continue this way. Something has to give way. And that is the beginning of change. When every member of society, every citizen decides that things have to change, it is only at that point that the basic necessities for change to happen will begin to take place. Take, for example, I just received a post about the malpractices, about the irregularities in some of the results that were announced in Nigeria in the presidential election. I'll just post, I'll show you right now, just have a watch.
INEC wait o una sure say una dey use calculator more na calculate dis things wey una put here
from 2,270
to 2,800 how e take be 90,000 how e take be 90,000 which calculator una dey use which calculator una dey use o INEC
how e take be 90,000
which calculator una dey use no be dis thing we dey see here no be dis thing we dey see here how e take be 90,000 abeg hey.
See, that is something that was posted that is one of the results posted in the INEC portal, and there was all kinds of miscalculations and everything shown in the portal. And these are some of the irregularities we discovered. A lot of such are still available in the portal today for people to see. I see these are some of the issues that came up, and people began to think that, well, by virtue of these miscalculations and glaring manipulations, the election, there needs to be a review of the presidential election in Nigeria on the 25th of February. Even with all this, the electoral umpire went ahead to declare a winner. And that is outrightly against the provisions of the Electoral Act and the Constitution, from where the electoral umpire derives its power. Anyway, that's about the election in Nigeria. And going to other countries in Africa, we still have people who are supposed to be retired. Take the case of Cameroon. Paul Biya has been in power for over 3 decades, and each time any opposition springs up his head, there is all kinds of issues that go on, and such dissident voices are stifled and oftentimes annihilated. And the country is not better off with over 3 decades of the same man ruling the country. And it's only cause for reasoning that such circumstances will bring about, bad leadership. in a country. And this same scenario plays around in almost every African country where people tend to cling to power without considering the interests of the masses. They see power as their own personal property to be managed the way they want it without caring for the welfare of the citizen. Democracy is not practiced in that way. True government representation of the people does not happen in that manner. And we must condemn such acts in Africa as a continent. Leaders that have claimed to power for too long must be shown the way out in one way or the other, especially when they did not get the power through genuine and proper democratic means. Leaders in Africa must, as a matter of urgency, subject themselves to the scrutiny of the people. The office of the citizen is the highest citizen in the land, and it must be respected. Every citizen in the land has a very crucial power from where the leadership of that country derives its authority. Yes, and that is why all nations of Africa must begin to tune their processes of electing people to rule them so that the citizens will not be shortchanged. Citizens must, as a matter of fact, also galvanize themselves, organize, and ensure that good governance prevails in their land. If people get the type of leadership it deserves, and for any nation that does not act where people cling to power forever, that is not acceptable. They must be confident and be united to make a common declaration against such actions of leaders who cling to power at all costs and ensure that they bring about processes that show such persons the way out of power through proper legal and democratic processes. And this calls for voters or citizens' participation, citizens' awareness, preaching the good news that citizens must be actively involved in the affairs of their nation. Citizens must be actively involved in who runs the affairs of the nation, how such persons are enthroned, and as citizens of the land, citizens must be concerned about the future of the nation, the future they are going to bequeath to their children and their children's children. With these thoughts in mind, people can be motivated or encouraged to do something because if you don't do anything, the status quo will not change. And if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, you can't expect a different result. And that is why we must, as a matter of fact, enlighten our people to the fact that participative democracy is the best form of democracy anyone can think of. And for that reason, every citizen must take it upon themselves to ensure that they participate in the process that brings about leadership of the people, in the process that brings about rulers or leaders in the communities, in the national level, in the state level, even in their respective organizations. This is a way of garnering experiences and knowledge that will ultimately assist you in getting into the larger picture. We must sensitize our people to be participative in every aspect of the social, political affairs of our nation and the continent of Africa. This is the only way we can liberate Africa from the shackles of neo-colonialism, from the shackles of the apron strings of the colonial masters and their stooges that are creating an unbearable situation in Africa, in African nations. We must jettison the idea of passivity. We must be active in the affairs of our nation, in the affairs of our community, in the affairs of our immediate environment. That is a starting point towards achieving the bigger picture. Nigerians and indeed the African nations must take it upon themselves to take their destiny in their hands and ensure that no leader, no ruler comes to play a fast one on them and get away with it. There must be consequences for every action of leaders, people in position of trust must be held accountable by all means and at all costs. It behoves on the citizens to ensure that this task of holding people accountable, holding persons in positions of authority or positions of trust accountable to the people for whoever has a responsibility has an attached accountability to it. So, fellow Nigerians and indeed Africans, take it upon yourself to take the destiny in your hands and ensure that leaders in every sphere of our national, social, political lives, community wise, are accountable to the people at all times. Not doing that will give them the opportunity to take the people for granted and ride on the people without consequences, with impunity. That is why I'm urging you, fellow Africans, strive to develop Africa. Strive to develop your various countries. Strive to ensure that the good thing is done in your various countries. Strive to ensure that best practices are the way of life in every sector of the society. Thank you, and God bless. Until I come your way again, this is Jay Ehizif Okale, reaching you from multiple social media platforms under the auspices of the Global Coalition for Security and Democracy in Nigeria. And the topic today is about good governance in Africa. Why is Africa not getting it right? This is the time for people to rise and ensure that Africa is placed in the map of the world as a force to reckon with in every facet of the global life. Thank you, and God bless.